How's it going, folks? March of 1989 is what we're talking about today, as this is, of course, the year in television, and this is, of course, being recorded in March. But I've got a list here of big TV events that happened in March of 1989. Some significant events, some controversies, some moments that were unexpected events on live TV, some events that basically killed careers. We have a couple of notable shows here, some lesser shows, and one show in particular that is still on the air to this very day. So we have a lot to get to here. So let's go ahead and start off with the first big event of March of 1989. And that was this right here.
Sound check. 30 seconds to air.
No matter where in the world you are,
Pick up satellite feed.
on March 2nd,
Standby video replay.
get to a TV and watch as Pepsi Cola presents Madonna, singing her latest release, Like a Prayer, for the very first time on the planet Earth.
So yeah, this was kind of a big deal back then. During the Grammy Awards, which took place on February 28th of that year, Pepsi premiered a commercial basically saying, you know, we're going to play this, we're going to have this brand new commercial that comes out on that Thursday, and it's going to air during the most popular show on TV at the time, The Cosby Show, and it's a commercial for Pepsi with Madonna. And then the following day, her new music video, Like a Prayer, which the commercial is going to have the song in, is going to be featured in a music video on MTV. So the commercial aired during the Cosby Show, and then the next day, the Like a Prayer video hit MTV. And because of that video in particular, the commercial itself was basically kind of pushed off to the side and was originally delayed. They never aired it again after it first aired on TV. It didn't play again until 30 years later, and it actually played during the MTV Video Music Awards of 2023. But the video that the commercial was in, sparked a lot of controversy. And that was a commercial, of course, where you have Madonna playing this woman who goes into a church, and she's going in there and she sees a symbol of there was the statue that was inspired by Martin de Poré, the patron saint of mixed race people, and this video in particular had some things that were kind of seen as kind of extremely controversial, such as, you know, Madonna singing in front of Ku Klux Klan style burning crosses, a scene where she's kind of like getting intimate with the black man in particular, and yeah, it was basically it was a controversial video. Pope John Paul II encouraged people to boycott Madonna in Italy, and there was actually a number of boycotts from Pepsi, KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, because of the commercial in general. But regardless of that, MTV still played the video on heavy rotation, and most people who saw the video gave it a lot of praise, and it actually was nominated in the Viewer's Choice and Video of the Year for the MTV Video Music Awards that year. And yeah, it was definitely a very intriguing little controversy that happened there, specifically because of the elements of the video itself. But hey, it's a classic song. It was cool before Deadpool and Wolverine made it awesome again. But yeah, not much more to say about that one. Just thought it was kind of interesting to bring that up in particular. So let's go ahead and move on to what happened during the Motocraft Quality Parts 500, which was in that month as well. Now, you look at it and you think to yourself, okay, so what exactly happened here? I don't think anything too specific happened in this, according to me. And that's what I thought too. But yeah, turns out, if you watch closely, no joke, when I recorded this for the first time, that was my first time seeing what you're about to see here. And you're going to see that I jumped a little bit when this happened.
Right side tire had fuel in the car, and apparently that's the problem. They're looking at the right front of the car now, determined the tire was going down, and that apparently was the only problem. He had a tire going down. They had not raised the hood whatsoever. Looking beneath the car is Dale Inman, and a fire breaks out in the pits. Now that's something you don't often see in NASCAR.
So yeah, as you can see, there was a fire that broke out in the pit stall of Richard Petty, and basically everyone tried to get out of the way, and actually Dr. Jerry Punch, who I found out actually has done this more times than you would expect during the 1980s. He would save people from these specific events and everything that were going on during there. I mean, this was a thing where you look at that again, and you just see these people who are just doing their job, and all of a sudden this gigantic fire just comes out of nowhere, and it's just kind of like, what the heck? And it's just like if that was me and a fire's breaking out there, I'm shocked. I'm surprised if I'm still out of there with my skin intact. Which, I mean, that was just that was insane. But 2 people ended up getting injured on that, and basically after that, in which several items of Punch's clothing were singed or melted, ESPN essentially mandated that its pit reporters wear fire retardant suits. And since then, other networks have adapted that practice in general. But like I said, it's not the first time that Jerry Punch saved some lives here. I mean, I found out that this guy did a lot more than you can expect from just being a guy on ESPN in general. Like, one of the big ones was that in 1988, he actually helped in the rescue efforts after the wrecks of Rusty Wallace and Don Marner. In the case of Wallace's front stretch crash at Bristol, he actually happened to be on the pit road at the time, and as a result was the first person on the scene before the rescue crew could be scrambled. And Punch's medical training provided pivotal, as Wallace was initially unconscious following the crash, and actually helped to revive Wallace, who was able to start the following night's race with only minor injuries. I mean, yeah, it's a really, really incredible thing that what this guy was able to do in particular. It's something you should definitely check out the research for, because when I looked up that footage in particular, I found this little documentary someone put up on there. It's actually really engaging and really interesting to take a look at. So definitely check that out. But yeah, so let's go ahead and move on to Saturday Night Live with this particular episode.
Costello.
And well, you know who I am. We're on Saturday Night Live, and I'm going to be playing a bunch of different characters.
And well, you know what I'm going to do.
Really, in a way, nobody really knew what Elvis Costello was going to do. Because this particular episode of Saturday Night Live was intriguing, to say the least. This was a thing where, Elvis Costello appeared on Saturday Night Live alongside the host Mary Tyler Moore, and it was actually the first time Costello had appeared on SNL in 12 years, because in 1977, he appeared on the show, but was temporarily banned after he abruptly switched songs live against the wishes of the record company and SNL. And in 1977, he was scheduled to perform his debut single, Less Than Zero, and instead played Radio, which criticized the commercialization of broadcasting. And because that SNL basically banned him for a long time, and then 12 years later, they basically said, okay, we realize you're popular, so come back out here and come back and do Saturday Night Live for us. Then again, SNL has banned people before in the past, and they brought him back. I mean, how many times has Chevy Chase been banned from SNL, and yet he still finds his way back over there? But certainly kind of an interesting thing that happened there. So let's go ahead and move on to this big disaster that happened during the 61st Annual Academy Awards. Now, here's the thing about the Academy Awards. They had the best Nielsen ratings they had in 5 years for that particular show. But there was something that happened that is still talked about today as one of the most notorious events in Academy Awards history, to the point where the producer of the show was basically kind of blacklisted because of it.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's one of the great legends of Hollywood. She's back with us tonight, Miss Snow White. Good evening.
Oh, good evening, Mr. Archer. It is so exciting to be here tonight.
Here on Earth, for this poor mortal, Vincent Price and Coral Brown. Isn't it exciting, Snow? Isn't it thrilling? It gets better. Meet your blind date, Rob Lowe.
Oh, Mr. Lowe, I'm such a fan.
Really?
So this was, of course, the opening number for the Academy Awards. It was an effort to show more glamour and showmanship in the ceremony, and the producer hired playwright Steve Silver to co-produce an opening number inspired by his musical revenue, Beach Blanket Babylon. It's a segment consisting of an elaborate stage show centering around Eileen Bauman, playing Snow White, who comes to Hollywood and is entranced by its glamour. And like Beach Blanket Babylon, the opening act also features dancers wearing giant elaborate hats in a setting designed to resemble the Coconut Grove nightclub. Hollywood dignitaries such as Alice Faye, Dorothy L'Amour, Sid Charisse, her husband Tony Martin, as well as Buddy Rogers and Vincent Price were prominently featured, and also featured Merv Griffin singing a rendition of the song I've Got a Lovely Bunch of Coconuts. And then Bauman and Rob Lowe sing a version of Proud Mary by Creedence Clearwater Revival, with lyrics rewritten to refer to the industry, and it was a song for which the act is infamously remembered. Because of this, the show ended up becoming a laughingstock and went down as one of the worst moments in award show and television history. It was something where it was so bad that, it's, the Disney company actually sued the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences for the use of the likeness of Snow White. I mean, the lawsuit demanded unspecified damages for copyright infringement, unfair competition, and dilution of business reputation, and the Academy producer immediately issued an apology to the studio, and the lawsuit was essentially dropped. Meanwhile, for Bauman, she claimed that she was made to sign a gag order the next day, prohibiting her from ever speaking to the press about her performance for the next 13 years. And then in 2013, she finally came out and said, it was described as a performance as looking like a gay bar mitzvah. I mean, it was so bad that Alan Carr, the producer of this, was basically, as I said, blacklisted, and he never did anything. He was basically pushed out of Hollywood because of this. He would do a couple of other things, like, I'm trying to think of what else he did. He did something I did when I looked it up. Okay, maybe I'm just misreading it here, but he was at the Paramount re-release of Grease in 1998. We actually produced a VH1 special about that, but yeah, he was basically pushed out of Hollywood because of this. But don't worry, folks. Rob Lowe certainly won't have any controversies in 1989 that will seriously damage his career in particular. No particular sex tape whatsoever, but that's a whole nother thing altogether, and yeah, I think you get the idea of where we're going at here. But as I said before, the 61st Annual Academy Awards was notable for that infamous moment in TV history, and really, it's not hard to see why, because, I mean, look at how bad this thing was put together. I can only show you little bits and clips of that, but let me tell you something. There's a reason why you won't find this on the Oscars YouTube channel. I mean, they have other moments on there that were seen as controversial, but that moment, for some reason, they're just like, nope, we're never putting this on there again. And I think everyone knows the reason why. So those are some of the big specials that happened in March of 1989. So let's go ahead and move on to some notable series premieres, such as Hard Time on Planet Earth.
The behavior between men and women here is very confusing.
I will soon be in contact with a subject called Chet.
Where are you from?
Very far away.
This energy is dangerous.
You are here to terminate me.
What the fuck is this? I bet that's probably what you're asking yourself, but Hard Time on Planet Earth premiered on CBS on March 1st, 1989. It was a show about an alien elite military official played by Martin Kove, who serves at a huge interplanetary war, and after the wars ended, he was prosecuted for rebellion against the planet's ruling council. He was found guilty, but in recognition of his valuable service in the war, he was given the chance to reform by spending an undetermined amount of time in a vastly underpowered human form on planet Earth. And as you can see, he's got like this bizarre small floating robot in the form of a mechanical eye, who is with the mission of overseeing with the mission of overseeing this thing to make sure it keeps its violent behavior in check. Control also provides comic relief to the series, usually by assessing the events with the catchphrase, "Negative outcome, not good." You know what else was not good? This series, and it's hard to believe this came from the same people who created Predator. No joke, Jim and John Thomas, the writers of Predator, created this show. And, I mean, I don't see why, and you can see why this show didn't last very long. I think People Magazine kind of summed it up. About 20,000 RPM, that's how fast I reckon Walt Disney must be spinning in his grave with shows like this on the air. It's just one long, bad commercial. CBS knew this was bad right away, and this was back when CBS was struggling in the ratings badly. I mean, when you put it up against two of the hottest shows at the time, Unsolved Mysteries on NBC and Growing Pains on ABC, yeah, you know it's a show that's dead on arrival, and not surprisingly, was canceled after one season. So, but let's go from one show that was canceled after one season to a show that is still very much on the air to this very day.
Location as it happens. All suspects are considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
That's right, we're finally getting to one of the 1989 shows that is still on the air to this very day, and one of the longest running ones is Cops. This was a show that premiered on Fox on March 11th of 1989, and it was known for chronicling the lives of law enforcement officers following police officers and sheriff's deputies, sometimes backed up by state police or other state agencies during patrols, call for services, and other police activities including prostitution and narcotic stings, and occasionally the serving of a search and arrest warrant at criminal residencies. Some episodes also featured federal agencies, and it follows a cinema verite convention, which does not consist of any narration, scripted dialogue, incidental music, or added sound effects. Although the first episode was very much like that, but after that, they basically kind of dropped that altogether. It depended entirely on the commentary of the officers and of the actions of people with whom they came into contact, giving the audience a fly-on-the-wall point of view. Each episode typically consists of 3 self-contained segments, which often end with 1 or more arrests. It is one of the longest-running TV shows, which ran from Fox from 1989 to 2011, and essentially was canceled until it was eventually brought back over to Spike TV, aka Paramount Network, in 2013, and then in June of 2020 after the George Floyd protest, and that is they basically dropped the show, and then Fox Nation ended up picking up the show not too long afterwards, and that's where it's been ever since. But the original Cops in general, the original show was kind of a revolutionary thing. It was a revolutionary TV show, and kind of began the essential idea of the reality show, and not the newfound reality show that we're currently living in. This is basically a documentary reality type of show where you're following these cops on their everyday duty, and it was a very intriguing show when it was on early. I mean, it was very ahead of its time. It was a show that was very much intriguing to check out, and yeah, you did get invested in watching all these people getting arrested in the ways that they were able in the crimes that they were committing. That's what I'm trying to say here. I'm just kind of jumbling right now, but I'm just trying to figure out how to say this stuff off the cuff here. But yeah, it also helped that you had a badass song with "Bad Boys" by Inner Circle to really give this show an iconic opening that made people want to stick around there. And of course, that great opening, Cops is filmed on location with the men and women of law enforcement. All suspects are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. That makes the show very intriguing overall. Granted, it's a show I kind of fell off on in the later years in general, mostly because I haven't really had no keen interest on checking it out then. But back in the day when you're watching Spike TV, or you're watching your local stations, your local Fox station or WP or NBC station, and you're just trying to watch something to get you to sleep, can do that overall, and it does. The original seasons of Cops were very intriguing in general. They were very entertaining. They were very impressed. They were very nice. They were very entertaining in general. It's probably the best way to describe it overall. I haven't watched any of the later seasons overall, but it's amazing to see that the show still has a lot of life to it, even after all these years. It's been on for 37 years. That's really impressive stuff for a show like this to be on as long as it has. And of course, the show in particular did eventually lead to a lot of copycats that we're going to get to later on down the road. And of course, this was a perfect collaboration with Cops and America's Most Wanted, making it part of Fox's Saturday Night lineup for so many years. It was definitely a very unique show for the time, and it's still on the air to this very day, coming up on 4 decades on the air. It's one of those shows that probably is never going to go away anytime soon, especially with the world that we're living in. But the next show in particular, doesn't have that same kind of success that Cops had. In fact, this one is a show that many of you probably don't even remember even existed.
Picture Perfect Family has gone over the rainbow.
There's a dead witch under the house and everything's in color. Oh, God!
Munchkins beware, Heartland premieres tomorrow.
No, this has nothing to do with The Wizard of Oz. In fact, this doesn't even take place in Kansas. It takes place in Nebraska. My only guess of why that promo is that it is was because CBS was probably airing The Wizard of Oz when this was coming on the air, and back when they used to air it all the time. But this is a show that stars Brian Keith as an old-fashioned Nebraska farmer who moves in with his daughter, played by Katie Lehman, son-in-law Richard Gillian, and their family, Keith's real-life daughter Daisy Keith, playing one of his grandchildren. This was created by Don Rio, who of course is one of the main people behind shows later on down the road like Blossom, the John Larroquette Show, and My Wife and Kids. And it's also produced by Whit Thomas Production Company, the same company that would also be the producers behind shows like Soap, Benson, and more notably the most successful show, The Golden Girls. Needless to say, this show did not have the same success rate, as it was gone after pretty much 10 episodes. Once again, CBS, was in 1989, what can you say? I will say that one of the early stars of the show was Devin Ratray, a.k.a. Buzz from Home Alone. So, If you ever want to see a younger Buzz on a TV show a year and a half before he broke out with Home Alone, Heartland's the answer for you. So, let's move on to yet another CBS comedy series that didn't last very long.
She's the new live-in nanny from the Australian outback. He's a kid from New Jersey. Throughout tonight's shows, find out more about them in previews of Live-In.
Oh, wacky hijinks are about to ensue. I should mention, by the way, that promotion aired during the television premiere of Aliens. So, imagine you're about to watch Aliens, and then you get this treat preview for this wacky family comedy. And it's just like, I mean, man, CBS was really falling on hard times around this time, man. This premiered, I think, on the same day Heartland did. But Live-In, as the commercial you just saw indicates, it focuses on a young Australian au pair who is integrated into the home life of a New Jersey family and their teenage son, and his efforts to become her boyfriend. And CBS basically was hoping that this was going to draw a younger audience to the network, and not surprisingly, it didn't turn out that way. It premiered to decent ratings early on, and then as the series went along, ratings kept getting lower and lower and lower. Received very negative reviews when it came out. It was named one of the worst shows of 1989, and it felt like it didn't live up to CBS's reputation for airing high-quality programming, which is why many of their shows during this time period were gone after one season, with the exception of Murphy Brown, and I think a couple of other ones too, but the critics described the writing as childish, and though the content was unoriginal, but mostly approving of Lisa Patrick's role. Lisa Patrick playing the Australian au pair in this, and it doesn't help that the show was also produced by the same people who made the infamous The Charmings on ABC, using that from their success on Who's the Boss, which they were one of the writers for. But this thing was just kind of out. This thing was dead on arrival from the get-go, and it was just something that was not going to last very long in general. I mean, a newspaper advertisement literally called the show "sexy new comedy from the land down under," and it's just kind of like, it was bad. It was really, really bad. So, let's go ahead and move on to yet another show that did not last very long. This time over at ABC.
Okay, that's it. That's the final straw. Excuse me. Why aren't you flirting with me?
Kimberly! Mother.
Steven.
Saturday, men find out what they're really like.
First things first, premiering on a Saturday night is not a good sign. Even back then, unless you had a good lead-out show, like over at NBC with the Golden Girls and all that, you weren't going to last very long here. You have a reporter, a surgeon, a lawyer, and a cop bonding over a weekly poker game in Baltimore. The only notable thing about this show was the cast itself. You have Ving Rhames in one of his early roles, Saul Rubinek, Ted Wass, a couple of notable names there, but that's pretty much about it, man. Even the title of the show is so generic. Men. That's it. That's literally the name of the show. Men. I mean, you gotta at least have a hook to it. Like, why do you think 2.5 Men was as successful as it was, running for 12 seasons? Because it wasn't just simply called Men. Like, that right there should tell you everything you need to know. It was pretty much gone after 4 episodes. They ran it out of order too, which is almost never a good sign with this. So yeah, it really did not. This was one of those shows that was just dead on arrival. But at least ABC did have one successful comedy series in March of 1989, even if it had its weird production history. But we'll touch on that in a second. Here's Anything But Love.
Are we special friends? Special friends who maybe kind of sometimes could be more, but I guess we're best friends. I once had a female friend like this. Very close. In 6 months we were sleeping together. How long have we known each other? It'll be 6 months tomorrow.
Drop everything for the season premiere of Anything But Love next Wednesday.
Anything But Love is a really odd show. Not for the show itself, because, you look at it, it looks like a typical romantic comedy series where you have Richard Lewis and Jamie Lee Curtis, who are co-workers at a Chicago magazine who have a mutual romantic attraction with one another, and they struggle to keep their relationship strictly professional. This is actually produced by John Ritter's production company, who would later go on to cameo in several episodes. First season overall was actually a big success overall. It was actually a hit where ABC basically decided to give the show a second season in general, and Second season is when they started to really kind of start changing the show around, and that's usually not a good sign for the network is deciding to push things around here. So they basically made some changes in the second season by adding, they added a couple of other ensemble players into the picture here. You had characters played by Ann Magnuson, Joseph Mauer, Billy Van Zandt, Jay Milmore. They basically added a supporting cast of characters in general. And critics did hail the changes, and then ABC suddenly decided to move the show to a different time slot. They moved it to 9:30 on Wednesday nights, causing a large drop in the show's ratings. And then it was announced later as the 9 o'clock show, but then the immediate success of Doogie Howser, MD, caused ABC to flip the show 2 weeks into the season. And since it was renewed as a mid-season replacement, the third season didn't end up airing until February of 1991. And keep in mind, the second season finale aired on March 28th, 1990. So that's a year, nearly, without an episode of the show. And then they kept making changes even more. It kept the show in the same time slot, but they decided to call it now the all-new Anything But Love, because now they have John Ritter coming in for what it looked like it was going to be a permanent cast member, but it ended up only being a 3-episode arc. And the stabilized audiences for that show was enough to get it a fourth season, but then for this fourth season, ABC then decided to do this thing where it was going to be like a comedy block all night long. Remember when NBC did a comedy night all night block in 2011 when it was Community, Parks and Rec, The Office, 30 Rock, Outsourced, and Perfect Couples? Yeah, ABC did it first. It was part of an all-comedy block called The Hump, and they put it on at 10 o'clock at night. And when you do an hour at 10 o'clock of nothing but comedy, that's not very good for a broadcast network like ABC, CBS, or NBC. And not surprisingly, ratings slipped again, and the show was pushed back to Wednesday nights at 9:30 in November, and then was quickly canceled shortly afterwards. I mean, this show was just like, they had no idea how to keep this show successful. And 20th Century Fox, the people who made the show, decided not to even bother with the fifth season because they wouldn't have enough to get a show to get into syndication, which back then first run syndication, if you got to like an 88 episode echelon, you were guaranteed to be in first run syndication, but that never happened, and Fox basically decided that they wouldn't have enough interest to get the show to that, so because it would be unprofitable for them. But the show itself wasn't bad. It was just all over the place. It really felt like they had no idea how to keep the show relevant, even though people were watching it solely because of what Richard I was about to say Richard Jennings for a second. Richard Lewis and Jamie Lee Curtis, like, you watched it to see their relationship blossom, and it was just really kind of like, it was an odd thing. It was like a really bizarre situation here. It almost felt like what happened with Till Death. Remember Till Death, that show with Brad Garrett and Jolie Fisher, where Fox just kept renewing it until it got to syndication, and then they just kind of let it go? I mean, it's amazing that they didn't do the same for this show in particular. It was just a weird thing. It felt like everyone involved was trying to sabotage the project, but, I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis and Richard Lewis were good enough comedic actors to make it work, but it was actually, in a way, it's kind of a precursor to the more successful Mad About You, but it's really hard to get a grasp on the show because they kept making way too many changes. It felt like the show was sabotaging itself from within, and it never found that moment where everyone could agree to make it work. A simple concept of a show making for one of the most baffling TV runs in history. Yeah, it was a very odd situation with that show in particular, so... But yeah, that's Anything But Love. But let's go ahead and move on to another very successful show that came out in March of 1989. That was over at NBC.
Up in a different place, a different time, to a different life.
Oh, boy.
What if you looked in the mirror and it wasn't you?
I'd like to wake up now.
What if you were Dr. Sam Beckett?
You're part of a time travel experiment that went a little caca.
He's stuck in the past living lives that aren't his.
I'm in a real identity crisis here.
And to get back home, he's got to help the people he meets and correct some mistakes of his own.
Dad, please don't hang up.
A world premiere movie, Quantum Leap, tonight.
Of course, it premiered as a made-for-TV movie on Easter Sunday, which NBC had a couple of interesting things happening that weekend, because not but a couple of days before that, they actually re-aired the 1960 version of Peter Pan starring Mary Martin for the first time since almost 30 years. And then on this particular Sunday, before this movie came out, they showed Super DuckTales on the Magical World of Disney, which was the DuckTales 2-hour special featuring the premiere of Gizmo Duck. But this was, of course, the premiere movie of Quantum Leap, where you have Scott Bakula as Dr. Samuel Beckett, a physicist who believes he has invented a way to travel through time, and voluntarily subjects himself to the experiment that he believes will provide the validity of his controversial theories. Sam leaps into the fluid of space-time and apparently disappears forever. However, it is soon revealed that Beckett's consciousness is alive and able to transfer to and appear in and inhabit the bodies of other people existing on his timeline. The artificial intelligence computer he created, called Ziggy, operates with the assumption that in order to return home, Sam must change events in the past in order to correct the future course of events. Dean Stockwell, fresh off an Oscar nomination for his performance in Married to the Mob, co-stars as Rear Admiral Al Calavisi, Sam's womanizing, cigarette-smoking companion and best friend, who appears only as a hologram. Al, which I'm just starting to realize is basically the kind of an assumption equivalent of AI, is able to research the life Sam currently inhabits, providing advice when needed, and he's the only person able to see Sam when Sam has traveled through time. This was kind of a revolutionary show back then. It was a show that mixed good comedy, good drama, romance, science fiction, and even a little bit of social commentary. There's episodes in particular that are really... This was one of those shows that was really ahead of its time and ran for 5 seasons and had probably one of the most disappointing conclusions, where they set up a cliffhanger that was supposed to be for the idea, because they had no idea if they were going to be... They tried to write it... So what happened... Let me start over. What essentially happened was that Belsario was told to write an episode that could serve as a season finale or series finale, as it was unclear whether or not Quantum Leap was going to be renewed for a 6th season. The last episode contains several answers to long-standing questions about the show, but continued enough ambiguously for season 6. When the show wasn't renewed, 2 title cards were attached to the end of the last episode. The first read that Al's first wife Beth never remarried, so they were still married in the present day, and had 4 daughters. And then the second was that Sam basically never returned home. And because of that, the finale was met my viewers with very mixed feelings. And actually, a few years after the airing of that finale, a script for an alternate ending was leaked online that implied that Al, though encouragement of his wife Beth, would become a leaper to go after Sam. Belsario said he had no scripts existing and that he doesn't know where the idea came from. However, in 2018, a fan purchased on-set publicity stills taken from Season 5 that did contain shots of Al and Beth together that implied that part of the alternate ending was in fact shot and given credibility to the alternate ending scenario. And actually, video footage of that was later uploaded to Reddit in May of 2019, where Scott Bakula later confirmed that several endings were shot and that the footage was authentic. So yeah, this was a show that sadly never got a chance to really finish off with a qualifiable finale in general, because everyone wanted to see if Sam Beckett was ever going to be able to get back home. And unfortunately, we never got to see that in general, because the show never really found an audience after the last season ended. They kept moving the show around. I think at one point they had it on Friday nights, and then they kept moving it around to the point where, the show was having troubles just staying on the air. Actually, I was wrong about that. It was on Friday night for the first season, second season, and then they moved it to Wednesday nights where it would have the most success. And then in its final season, they moved it to Tuesday night, and that didn't do so well. But, Quantum Leap in general was a show that was very much ahead of its time, and yeah, it was an entertaining show overall. Sadly, it's one of those shows that doesn't have a stable conclusion, because we never know what happened to Samuel Beckett or Al at this point, but nevertheless, it was still a great show all across the board. A really entertaining show. And like I said, very much ahead of its time. And probably one of the best shows that Donald B. Pelissaro was behind. Even though this guy has made a ton of shows with recent stuff like Jag and NCIS and classics like Airwolf and also Magnum P.I. This is probably his best show in general. Quantum Leap was definitely that. So let's move on now to the last show that we have here from NBC in March of 1989, the soap opera Generations.
On a mission.
Hey, who would you hook up with that would bring you a place like this? I've got something in there. Then go in and get. Can you come in for just a minute, please? I'm really not interested. Jeez.
The groom is back from the dead. Jason lives only on Generations.
Because it isn't a soap opera until somebody is getting slapped in the face. Yeah, this was actually kind of a groundbreaking soap opera. This is a show that basically follows a white family and a black family, with a cast that includes such names as Vivica A. Fox. This is one of her early roles. Marla Adams, Lynn Hamilton, Richard Roundtree, Kelly Rutherford, Christoph St. John. But most notably, it was kind of a groundbreaking show in the sense that it was actually the first soap opera to feature a Black American family from its inception. Keep in mind, this is over nearly 40 years before Beyond the Gates, which was CBS's most recent soap opera, which is basically kind of a black-centered soap opera. But yeah, this was kind of a revolutionary show for the time. But unfortunately, it didn't have that lasting power that other soap operas at the time, like Days of Our Lives and Another World, Santa Barbara, the shows that were on them at that time didn't have that same success ratio that those shows did, and it was kind of gone after a couple of seasons in general. But it did end up winning a couple of Creative Arts Emmy Awards, was nominated for a couple of Daytime Emmy Awards, but could never really live up to the other soap operas on TV at the time. I mean, it was usually losing out in the ratings. It was actually very low rated. It was actually 12 out of 13 soap operas in its first season, and then 12 out of 12 soap operas in 89 and 1990. But then that was around the time when they got rid of what was the soap opera they got rid of around that time? Ryan's Hope on ABC, which ended on January 15th of 1989. So, but still, it was kind of a revolutionary show for the time period, and yeah, definitely worth talking about here. Generations. So, there you go. That's pretty much all the big TV events that happened in March of 1989. So, once again, we'll meet back here next month and take a look at the shows of April 1989. Take care.